So the first thing we're going to be reviewing is these three documents that you see. Every single one of them covers something to do with fire detection, fire alarm systems. The first one you see there on the left is BS 5839 Part 6, which was recently changed or updated at the end of April this year. The other one we've got there, which mentions fire detection, fire alarm systems, is the Building Standards Agency technical handbooks, which covers any sort of work which comes under a building warrant. And the last one there, probably out of the three of them, the last one's the least well known, which is the Housing Scotland Act, and specifically going to be looking at the tolerable standard and the repair standard, which determines what type of system you should be installing for private rented and all other types of properties within Scotland. So the first one there that I mentioned, 5839 Part 6, was updated in 2019. And this is the document which determines the grade of system and the category of system to be installed within a dwelling within the UK. The other thing it covers is social housing as well in here. It covers the types of systems that should be installed. It also looks at documentation that should be completed for a fire detection fire alarm system. And there's also a few other tables at the back of this document. It tells us how to service an installation, how to service an installation regards its fire detection fire alarm system, and where you need to be competent, or it could be an unskilled person, maybe for a domestic installation. You know, how do you make sure that these things are operating correctly? The other document we mentioned there was the Housing Scotland Act. Now, I mentioned the tolerable standard. This tolerable standard sets a minimum requirement throughout Scotland that you need to meet by 2021. So every house, whether it's domestic, private or social, needs to meet this minimum requirement. And you'll see the date there, the 1st of February 2021, that you've got to meet this target to make sure that your property meets this minimum requirement. Now, what does that actually mean, this minimum requirement? Well, we've got a diagram of a typical house here, and we'll show you the minimum requirement for certain locations. So the first location there mentions within this tolerable standard is circulation spaces. Every landing should have a means of detection, so a detector every landing. It also mentions a detector in the main principal living area, i.e. the living room. And the other one it mentions within that tolerable standard is every kitchen should have a heat detector in it. Now, you also might see there's one in the loft there. There is a requirement to do a risk assessment. If you've got electrical equipment in the loft, there might be a need for a detector located, because a lot of homes nowadays have got PV on the roof. There might be electrical equipment located in the attic where it wasn't there before. So somebody needs to do a risk assessment to say that there might be a need for a detector in the loft, because you've got maybe the inverter, you've got the various control equipment within the loft itself. So there might be a need for a detector in the loft. These detectors are required to be linked in some way. Now, it could be hardwired or it could be wireless for these smoke detectors to communicate with one another. So if one goes off, they all go off no matter where you are in the property. Also within the tolerable standard, it mentions the last point there, a carbon monoxide detector to be fitted. If there's a fuel burning appliance, generally that would be if you've got a gas boiler, you should have a carbon monoxide detector, ideally within 3 metres or a bit closer if it's achievable. But maximum sort of distance you're talking about for one of these detectors, in case your appliance goes faulty in some way, would have a carbon monoxide detector. Now, the other thing that gets mentioned in the Housing Scotland Act, we mentioned the tolerable standard. Now, that covers all types of housing. The other thing that gets mentioned is this repair standard. Now, the repair standard was specifically for private rented properties. So if you own a home and you rent it out, you're a private landlord, you would fall under this category under the repair standard. And it specifically mentions fire detection. There must be some means of fire detection within your property. And you'll see the magic date there, 1st of March 2019. If you've got a private landlord, you should have a means of detection of fire within your home if you're a private landlord. Within the repairing standard, it gives us a wee bit of information from the Scottish Government. It tells us that we don't need to fit mains detectors. We could get away with battery-operated detectors, but they need to be tamper-proof. That's the key thing. If it's an existing property and it's private rented, it needs to be interlinked, as we've just seen, but it could be tamper-proof. It doesn't need to be mains. Or it could be a mixture of mains and battery, depending if the part of the installation was done a number of years ago. There was a requirement for mains. So the guidance provided by the Scottish Government is fairly flexible, and as you can see in the last bullet point there, allows either mains, powered alarms, tamper-proof powered alarms, or a mixture of both is allowed. It's just to stop any barriers to entry. It allows that there is a solution there for most properties. The document I mentioned there, this Code of Practice, which is BS 5839 Part 6, specifically looks at housing requirements for fire detection fire alarm systems. It also covers these other things within the update into 2019. It covers sheltered housing, support housing. It gives us the grades and categories for new and existing properties as well, and it also covers HMOs. You know, HMO properties, I don't know if anybody knows what an HMO property is, but generally the type of property would be student accommodation where there's a number of individuals who are not related to one another, but they share the same amenity. That property would need to operate under a licence from the council, and that council would obviously stipulate certain things, but also covers HMOs. Other things that gets mentioned in that update for 2019, as you can see on the slide there, it makes reference to Part 1 of that standard. Now that covers Grade A systems, more suited for your commercial industrial types of property. There was a change in 2017 and they've incorporated some of the changes into that in Part 6. Also give us a couple of new tables at the back of this document for servicing and testing. And there's also a note there about ARC units, alarm receiving centres. It prevents false activation of your fire alarm system if the duty holder or the duty manager of some of these complex installations like your sheltered housing, if he's off-site, you could send the signal to a remote a receiving centre where they'd manage the signals. They would make sure it's not a false alarm before they sent for the fire brigade. So there is that comment within the document as well. And also, the last wee point there, self-catering premises, also holiday homes for rent, also covers B&Bs where there's less than 10 people. It covers the requirements for fire detection, fire alarm system. So there is quite a significant change to the version 2019. I'm pretty sure you will all recognise that photograph with the whole Grenfell disaster. There was a review after that by certain committees within the Scottish Government, and they wanted to look to see if there was anything they could do or improve after the Grenfell disaster. Within these properties, they're still sticking with the stay put policy. There's no need for a fire detection fire alarm system in the communal areas. However, in 5839 Part 6 2019, it does say if the building falls below building standards, you could fit a temporary system in the communal areas of these high flats, but they're relying on the compartmentisation between the flats to stop the spread of fire. But it does recognise that if it falls below building standards, there could be a temporary system installed in the communal areas. We've gave you a couple of examples here of the type of stuff that gets mentioned within BS 5839 in regards to the type of system, sorry, the category of system and the grade as well. You'll see here for existing sheltered housing premises, the grade that was required was a grade D system, category LD2. Now the category specifies what areas the detector should be located in. Generally, stairwells, landings, and any specific areas where there's a high fire risk would be classed as an LDT. That's where you would fit your detectors within existing premises. For new premises for sheltered housing, they've slightly changed the category. They've moved it up to an LD1, which basically every single room within that sheltered housing, except for a toilet or a shower, requires a means of detection. HMOs, as I mentioned earlier on, generally they fall within student accommodation. And you can see there, the first point there, new material altered premises, it's an LD1, i.e. every room's got to have a means of detection. And for existing properties, it's an LD2, again, that's corridors, stairwells, any specific rooms with a high risk of fire. HMOs in the communal areas, maybe communal kitchen, maybe communal access areas, it refers to a Grade A system. Now, a Grade A system where you've got a control panel, indicating equipment, a wee bit more high-tech rather than what you would see in a domestic house. So there is a need to probably get a design done, do a risk assessment, work out fire escape routes and stuff like that for a Grade A. So a Grade A system, it's more likely to be a consultant, maybe get involved in that, somebody who is fully aware of what the risks are within that property. Building standards. Now, we mentioned one of the documents at the start. Building standards have not changed their mind on new builds. You still must fit mains operated with battery backup, with wireless interconnect or hardwired. You can't get away with just tamper-proof battery operated detectors. If it's a new build or it's an alteration to an existing building and it comes under the scope of a warrant, building standards still wants mains detectors, but the wireless could be hardwired or wireless. So they've not changed their mind over the last number of years. So building warrants have no change with regards to what the requirements are for detectors. It's only for private rented, you could get away with mains, mixture of maybe battery backup or just battery with tamper-proof devices. But building standards, under the scope of a warrant, they've not changed their mind, as you can see there. Battery-powered alarms are not suitable. So that was a brief introduction to some of the changes. We have got a stand here, can't quite remember, I think it's stand 40 or something like that, where we have got the British standard there. We can take you through it if you want. If you've got any technical questions, we can certainly refer to that British standard. You've got to appreciate it was only released in May this year, so we're still digesting it ourselves. But that's the main points from the update that occurred this year. Again, any questions, I'll be here. I'll be up the back, or if you want to ask any questions just now, feel free. Okay, thanks so much.